Okay, Assalamualaikum and selamat sejahtera. So now let's discuss about anaerobic respiration and also fermentation. Okay, so the last day we already discussed about aerobic respiration. Now we look at what is the process of fermentation. Okay, so what is fermentation? So fermentation is a process of converting glucose to lactate or ethanol and carbon dioxide in the absence of oxygen. Okay, so the keyword for this process is, okay, so fermentation akan berlaku dalam keadaan, okay, tiada oksigen ataupun absence of oxygen. Okay, and then what happened to the glucose? So actually glucose will undergo glycolysis and then it will convert into two molecule of pyruvate. So macam yang saya dah explain sebelum ni, what happened to pyruvate in the absence of oxygen? Okay, so pyruvate tidak akan teruskan dengan proses aerobic respiration tetapi akan berlaku proses yang kita panggil sebagai fermentation. Okay, and then if you look at this one, consists of glycolysis plus reaction that regenerate NAD plus by transferring electron from NADH to pyruvate or derivative of pyruvate. Okay, and then the final electron acceptor is an organic molecule such as pyruvate and acetaldehyde. Okay, so remember, okay, the final electron acceptor, okay, is pyruvate and also acetaldehyde. Okay, so now we look at this one. So pyruvate that are formed does not enter Krebs cycle or electron transport chain. Okay, so macam yang saya dah katakan tadi, let's say bila dah berlaku glycolysis by which glucose is split into two molecule of pyruvate. So in the absence of oxygen, so what happened to pyruvate? Pyruvate does not enter Krebs cycle. So means that dia tak akan teruskan dengan aerobic respiration, okay, or electron transport chain. So what happened to the pyruvate? It will undergo the process of fermentation. So that's why, okay, from fermentation, it only produce 2 ATP. So mana datangnya 2 ATP ni adalah daripada proses glycolysis. Okay. Okay, so actually for fermentation, it will be divided into two types. The first one we call as alcohol fermentation. Okay, so what is alcohol fermentation? Comprise a series of biochemical reaction by which pyruvate is converted to ethanol and carbon dioxide in the cytoplasm of cell. Okay, so if you look at the explanation. Okay, so from the process of glycolysis, okay, macam yang saya dah explain sebelum ni, apa-apa pun glycolysis akan berlaku terlebih dahulu. So what happened to the glucose? Glucose will be convert or glucose will be split into two molecule of pyruvate. So what happened in the absence of oxygen? Okay, so this pyruvate will undergo fermentation. And then if it is occurs in the plant cell, okay, so it will proceed with alcohol fermentation. So what happened to this pyruvate? Pyruvate will undergo decarboxylation. Okay, so what is the meaning of decarboxylation? Carbon dioxide will be released and it will form acetaldehyde. Kenapa ada dua dekat depan ni? Disebabkan oleh at the end of the glycolysis, okay, so 2 pyruvate will be produced. So sebab tu mesti kena ada dua dekat depan. Okay, and then the acetaldehyde is then reduced to form ethanol by NADH. Okay, so means that NADH, its function, it will act as a reducing agent by which it will reduce acetaldehyde into ethanol. So what happened to the NADH? It will be oxidized into NAD+. Okay, so the example of the organism, okay, that undergo alcohol fermentation is many bacteria and also yeast. Okay, so macam mana nak bagi awak faham? Okay, so first of all, if you look at the process of alcohol fermentation, okay, so when glycolysis is already occur, so glucose will be split into two molecule of pyruvate. So what happened to this pyruvate? First, it will undergo decarboxylation by which it will release 2 carbon dioxide and it will be converted to become acetaldehyde. So means that acetaldehyde actually it will refers to the 2 carbon molecule. Okay, disebabkan oleh pyruvate ni ada 3 carbon. So bila dia riliskan carbon dioxide, okay, so maksudnya dia akan hilang 1 carbon. So that's why it will produce acetaldehyde. Okay, and then what happened to the acetaldehyde? It will be reduced into ethanol. So that's why the product of the alcohol fermentation actually ethanol and also carbon dioxide. Okay, so what is the reducing agent? Is NADH. Okay, so that's why NADH will be reduced into NAD+. Okay, sorry, NADH will be oxidized into NAD+, not reduced. NADH will be oxidized into NAD+. Acetaldehyde will be reduced into ethanol. Okay, so this is for alcohol fermentation. Okay, so now we look at the other types of fermentation, which are lactic acid fermentation. Okay, so apa beza antara alkohol dan juga lactic acid fermentation? For lactic acid fermentation, it does not involve a releasing of carbon dioxide. So means that pyruvate does not undergo decarbosylation. Okay, and then it is carried out by human muscle cell during strenuous exercise. Okay, and then it will occur when oxygen is depleted in the cytoplasm of the cell. So lactic acid fermentation akan berlaku bila saja kita katakan dekat sini when oxygen is depleted. Bila oksigen tu makin berkurangan dalam cytoplasm of the cell. Okay, so for the process of lactic acid fermentation, okay, if you look at the explanation, pyruvate is reduced directly by NADH to form lactate. So means that it does not involve releasing of carbon dioxide, okay, like alcohol fermentation. So what happened to pyruvate? Pyruvate will directly reduce into lactate by NADH, okay. So NADH is oxidized, okay, to NAD+. So the example of organism, okay, certain fungi and also bacteria. Okay. So if you look at this one, okay, so apa bezanya dengan alcohol fermentation? Untuk lactic acid fermentation, okay, pyruvate will be directly reduced into lactate. Okay, by what? By NADH. So means that the function of NADH in this case is a reducing agent. So what happened to this NADH? It will be oxidized into NAD+. Okay, so the difference between lactic acid fermentation and also alcohol fermentation. For alcohol fermentation, pyruvate will undergo decarbosylation to form acetaldehyde. Okay, but for lactic acid fermentation, pyruvate does not undergo decarbosylation, but pyruvate will be directly reduced into lactate by NADH. So what happened to NADH? It will be oxidized to NAD+. Okay, so for lactic acid fermentation in animals, skeletal muscle cells that are contracting actively, excess lactic acid is transported by blood to the liver to be converted to pyruvate by liver cell. Okay, so when oxygen supply is normal, so the pyruvate can enter mitochondria in liver cell and complete cellular respiration. Okay, so means that what you have to take note is, okay, awak mesti kena bezakan, okay, proses fermentation yang mana, okay, awak mesti kena tahu macam mana nak bezakan alcohol fermentation and also lactic acid fermentation. Okay.